Raising the Bets is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to Raising the Bets. We're a Catholic couple raising 5 kids outside of Boston. Join us as we share the joys and challenges of marriage, homeschool, and our adventures near and far as we make sense of the world and experience the best parts of our culture. I'm Don Bettinelli.
And I'm Melanie Bettinelli.
So we didn't do a whole lot this week. We didn't get to go out. Like last week you had gone to the Constitution, but this week we didn't do...
It was a quiet week.
It was a quiet week here at Lake Wobegon. It's those January doldrums. I've said this before. I'm sure I have. The worst part of the year is January and February. Those are my least favorite months, and because there's nothing to do, nowhere to go. And this is in the last few years, it's been even worse because you can't go out. So we're figuring out ways to spend our days inside. I did want to mention one thing that we've been dealing with, which is our solar panels. We have Tesla solar panels. We've had them for a few years, and as you probably remember, we had leak issues over the end of 2021, and we had to have our house ripped apart. And one of the things that happened is the contractor discovered that not only did we have a leak under the tub from the drain, and not only did we have a leak under the bathroom sink from the supply line, there was apparently a leak in the roof from the solar panels.
Which we had suspected before.
Yes.
And Tesla came out and they sent somebody out. They looked at it and they said,
fine.
There's no problem. It's fine.
Yeah. So the
famous last words.
Yeah. Because the contractor said, like, there's mold on these walls in these rooms that they're too far from where the leaks were for them to be from that.
Right. They could not have been from the bathroom
leaks.
Yeah.
So he went up into the attic, which is hard to access. Like we don't store stuff in our attic. It's not really. There's like these hatches. It's not even like a pull down ladder like in a lot of places. So I don't really go up there. So he goes up there. And there's mold and leak damage from where they had installed the solar panels and installed them poorly. So that was November, and I had been on the line with them trying to get them out here. So they sent someone out right away, actually. That was actually at first. They came, they looked, said, yep, that's totally our deal. We'll get we'll send people out to fix it. And then I called. It took 2 months? Month and a half?
A long time.
Well, at least a month. And a threat to contact the Attorney General's Consumer Affairs Division for them to finally get somebody to send a crew out here. And they came out, and there are these pucks. I don't know. It's whatever it is. There's a thing that goes around the attachment point where it attaches to the roof. And if they're not installed correctly, they can leak water through. And that's what they did. And they found 3 of them. They replaced them. But when the guy was up there, he said to me that... besides the leak, when the original installation crew came, they damaged the roof, and so the whole roof needs to be replaced. That's the downside. The upside is they're going to pay for it.
Which, the roof was
worse.
Going to need to be replaced eventually. So
it's a 15-year-old roof to begin with, so it's not like it's a new roof anyway. So that's going to happen at some point.
At some point.
This spring, I hope. The guy I finally got a hold of, who's local, the local installer guy. He says, just talk to me, call me when you have questions. I'll take care of it. But he's like, I don't know when we'll be able to get a crew out there because the supply chain shortages, all that sort of stuff. In the meantime, there's a guy coming out next Saturday who's going to do the mold remediation. So he's going to go into the attic and wash things down and look at whether they have to replace insulation. And he's probably going to look and say, oh, this leak is, this mold over here, that's probably from an ice dam that you had like 3 years ago when we had the big, or what is it, 5 years ago or 7 years ago now, whatever it is, when we had the big snowstorm winter. I'm sure that's going to come up because, this house is just one big leak.
Yeah.
Oh man. Anyway, in any case,
Drama.
House drama. Just more house renovation drama. Hopefully our couch and chair should be coming in very soon. This week, they said the end of January. And next week is the last week of January. This week, as you're hearing this.
I'm not holding my breath, but I will be very excited when they do show up.
Yes,
I'm not holding my breath.
This is your incentive to finish those boxes that are in that room.
Yeah, I will be like wanting to once the furniture is actually here, I will have a huge incentive to make the room pretty.
That's going to be clear before the furniture gets here, because they've got to get the couch and the old chair out from under those boxes. But in any case, we'll have that opportunity to feel like things are finally done. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
Is that I just want to feel like if we finally have a living room again, we finally are moved back in wholly and completely in our home. That's going to be a big deal. So looking forward to that. What else happened? Oh, well, the other thing is my mom came to visit. She came over on Saturday and
spent all day Saturday with us.
Yeah, that was nice. She doesn't she can't drive, and she will probably never drive again. That's just the fact of where she is in life. She's 85 now. Or 83. Whatever. In the early 80s. She was born in 38. So, she's up there, and she has health issues, of course, as people in the early 80s do, and so it just doesn't make sense for her to drive again. But she continues to have this hope that she will drive again. And the whole way I was driving her home, the whole way back, she was talking about, I gotta go get my license, and then I'm gonna go find a car for me to drive, and then I can come over and take the kids out, and it breaks my heart.
Yeah, it's really hard to lose your independence.
Yeah, well, it's hard to watch your parents get old and unable to do the things that they always did, because in some ways in my memory, my mom is always that woman in her late 30s, early 40s who took us places and did things, and she was able to do stuff. And even, she's even still in my memory, that woman in her 60s and 70s who was the grandma who could do things and stuff. And it's hard to see her get to this place where she continues to think of herself that way, but she isn't that person anymore. She needs to be taken care of all the time. And it's hard. It's hard to I understand now where a lot of people who had their parents go through a decline like this, where they were coming from. There's even some, the usual, as you're getting older, the mental faculties start to go, sort of thing. And so it's hard. She's even, I won't talk about it, but she talks about like going on vacations and taking the kids to Disney World, and that's never going to happen, and it reinforces for me the importance of living and doing things while you can and not putting them off. Right. That importance. So, but in any case, it was nice to see my mom and have her over, and the kids love to have her here. They love to see her. This time I warned Anthony before she got here to be gentle with Grandma. Last time she came, I don't know if I mentioned this. Last time she came, he came barreling in, 10-year-old boys, barreling in to give her a big hug, and she's not steady on her feet, and they both went over. And that was kind of scary. She didn't break anything. She didn't get really ill that hurt. The poor guy, he was so mortified and so sorrowful. She kind of fell on him. She was like laying on his arm, and we had to get her off of him before he could get up. And the poor guy, I felt bad for him, but she was fine. She was fine then. But this time, no mishaps. No mishaps. That was good. So what did you do? I spent most of the day, unfortunately, I was in recordings with The Mysterious World with Jimmy Akin, but
I spent the day actually just puttering around in the kitchen while talking to your mom. I made some honey whole wheat bread and some beef stew, which we had for dinner. She stayed for dinner.
Yep.
And it was nice. It was nice to have company, and I had thought I might get some organizing and unpacking done, but it turned out like the cooking somehow managed to take all day.
Right.
In the way that things do.
Things can sometimes do. Well, you did other things too, like you gave Lucy a little haircut trim, and
right. I washed Lucy's hair. I trimmed it. I managed children and that sort of thing.
You got some clothes. You found some clothes for her that she could wear. Some from the older girls.
Right. I did dig through one of the bins of hand-me-down clothes and pulled out some stuff that Lucy can wear now, and she was thrilled to have, oh look, long sleeve shirts, dresses, pants. And
it's so cute to see her wearing those things again that her older sister.
I know. I'm really glad, because there were a couple of sizes where I had misplaced the bin, and so Lucy, like by the time we found them, she was too big, and I thought, oh, all these beautiful clothes that I loved and that her sisters loved, and she never got to wear them. So I was glad that we were able to find these.
It is funny though, like a lot of times you think I didn't get much done, and then if you sit down and you think about all the things you did during the day, there was a lot of little things.
There was a lot of little things, yeah, but none of the big projects that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
It was a little bit too hard to focus on like big organizing project. And your mom really wanted to help, and she was like, can I help you do any of this? Like unpack this stuff? And I'm like, it's mostly just
sorting through things.
Sorting and decision making, and you can't really make decisions for me, alas and alack. I wish you could, but it's not really something anybody else can do for me. And some of it was like the clothes, like having to have Lucy sit down and go through it with me.
Yep.
I couldn't even do it on my own.
You know, it's amazing that you have these projects that you want to get done, and they just sort of, they're not huge projects. It's just a matter of, for me anyway, it's sitting down and doing it. Like, I'm going to take this time and do this thing. Like, there's a project I've been wanting to do. It's called the Big Book of Everything. And it's a binder. Essentially, it's a PDF that you print out. And it's a binder of everything in our lives. So that in case, God forbid, something were to happen to me or to you or to both of us, someone can take this and take care of our life situation, you know, so all the insurance, all the bills, all the insurance, all the, you know, doctors, all the stuff, all the passwords to everything, all the, you know, all the utilities, all that stuff is in there. There's a website actually you can download it, the Big Book of Everything. And it's the sort of thing every family should have. You should fill it out and have it somewhere, and everyone knows where it is, and maybe somewhere place safe. You know, save it like in a safety deposit box or something. And I've filled out part of it, but I've been meaning to do this for ages. And it's
the sort of thing you really should, instead of making it a big project, you should really just
break into pieces.
Yeah. Just do a little bit, like keep it on the desk or keep it where you can reach it, and then just like grab it and fill it, like spend a couple minutes a day filling part of it out.
A lot of it is digging out the information. Like, okay, where is this information that I need? I need the numbers. I need a phone number, or I need an account number. I need, you know, numbers. And so that's a part of it. So that's what kind of has held me back on it. But I'm also a famous procrastinator. I've been a terrible procrastinator my entire life, and this is part of it. I manage I manage to get my work done, but when it comes to personal stuff, I have a hard time.
Yeah.
Getting that done. But so anyway, that's work has been busy. We've been I don't talk a lot about on here about the podcast I'm doing with the other SQPN stuff, but I mean, this week we recorded Secrets of Hawkeye. That was fun. We've talked about Hawkeye on this podcast, and I did Secrets of Hawkeye with Mike Denz and David Hanlos, and we recorded a couple of upcoming Mysterious Worlds with Jimmy Aiken. One is this Stephen Greer, the UFO caller, this guy who says he can summon UFOs. And the other one's on poltergeists, which is going to be fun. That's a good one. So
poltergeists are cool and creepy.
Yes.
I really like the cool and creepy episodes, I have to say. Those are my favorites.
Especially the unexpected ones, like the stories you didn't know, like the Border Patrol ghost.
I listened to that one this week, or I still haven't finished it, but I listened to that one, and oh my goodness, like hairs standing up on I just thinking about it, I feel like the hairs are standing up on the back of my neck. Oh my gosh.
It was because it's so compelling. Like, this really feels like, this happened. Like, there was a ghost. Like, it's hard to dispute that based on what was in this story. So, I mean, what was There's some that are like that. Like Skinwalker gave me the same creeps.
Oh,
The Skinwalker Ranch episode. And that sort of stuff. So we did that recording with the Mysterious World, and so yeah, it's been busy with the SQPN. We've got a lot of good stuff coming up. So excited by that. All right, so let's talk about schoolwork. We got back to school this week.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of started last week, but it was sort of a soft start, and this week I think we're getting more into the swing of things. Anthony's math book finally came in, although he did a page and then he said he couldn't go any further because we couldn't find the protractor.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we're getting there slowly but surely. It's hard to start back up again
after so long.
After a really long break. And yeah, this week I was talking to some other homeschool moms online, and some new moms who homeschooling for the first time, and they're kind of in despair. This is so hard to come back from break. Is it always like this? And I said, yes, it is always like this. This is not.
It is no different from the rest of life.
It's not unique to you. And, you know, classroom teachers have the same problem. Getting the kids back into the groove after Christmas break is hard.
Yeah.
They don't want to be working. I don't want to be working. We just have to kind of suck it up and do it.
Yep. Yeah.
But yeah, we're getting there. We started a couple new books, which is kind of fun. I like it when we wrap something up and then can start something new. We're reading Around the World in 80 Days because that sounded like
nice
fun.
That does sound fun.
And a new book that's sort of a nature book, but it's set here in New England, kind of focusing on winter explorations, which felt timely. A friend of mine shared it, and I said, "Ooh, that looks really interesting." And it was available online, like
from the library.
No, not from the library. Actually, it's like an old book, so it was available.
Oh, like used
Project Gutenberg.
Oh, cool.
Like, for free.
Oh, that old, yeah.
Yeah, like really old. But it's set in New England and outside of Boston. And honestly, while some things change, a lot of things are.
Walking through the woods doesn't.
Walking through the woods and looking at animal tracks doesn't. And the first chapter was all about walking through the woods, looking at animal tracks in the snow. And we've done that before.
Yeah.
And it was fun to see how excited the kids got. Like, it was really well written and it was very engaging, and they were really totally into it.
Maybe they'll motivate them to go outside.
That's what I'm hoping. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's one of the things with the winter is getting them outside.
But it's easier when there's snow on the ground. I said this before when we were talking about the snow. It's easy when there's snow on the ground. When it's just cold, nobody wants to go outside.
Cold and dreary and kind of ugh. Everyone thinks people who aren't from around here think like New England winters are like it snows in November and then it melts sometime in March, and it's everything else is just as beautiful.
That's what I expected when I moved here, and I was sorely disappointed because the snow is just not that constant.
Right, especially in the Boston area. Like if you go further north, you have more consistent, and further west actually into the Worcester Hills, but. You get more regular snow cover, but in the Boston area, you don't. Like we got like a flurries yesterday, and we had a little coating of snow.
It was really pretty, actually.
Yeah.
It was the kind of like soft, dry, fluffy snow that it almost looked plastic, like fake movie Hollywood snow. It was so fluffy,
like potato flakes.
Yeah, it was gorgeous.
Or soap flakes. Yeah.
You just kind of to clean off the car. It was like just kind of.
Blow at it.
Yeah. Blow and it's gone.
You've become a connoisseur of snow. You've become like a regular New Englander now.
I have.
You know the different kinds.
We have a book that's called something like 12 kinds of snow or 13
ice.
kinds of
I thought it was ice.
Ice. Oh, maybe it's ice. Yeah.
But ice skating stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a fun book, and it would totally have never connected with me when I was a kid in Texas because we did not have 12 kinds of ice.
Well, now, in the next year or two, you will have lived half your life in Massachusetts.
Right. I moved to Massachusetts in the year 2000. So this will be my 22nd year here. And I was in my late 20s when I moved here.
Right. 26? 27, somewhere around there.
Something like that ish.
So we're a few years out, but we're getting close to living half your life in Massachusetts.
You know, it's really kind of weird. I did not intend to move here permanently when I moved here. It was just for grad school.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, it's all your fault.
It's all my fault. Okay, so back to school, and then Bella is back to doing Khan Academy with her math. She's doing algebra calculus something, and she is
calculus.
Algebra calculus something. I don't know.
Oh, you mean some higher math?
Some higher math. I don't know what she's doing. Like when it started, her coming in to the office every morning to do math with me on the iPad doing with Khan Academy. It was so I could help her because she was struggling. She has so far surpassed my knowledge of math by this point, but she's still struggling to get back into it now. She has a lot of trouble.
Yeah. I think she really finds it helpful to sit with you and have somebody like in terms of
here next to her.
Focus.
Yeah.
I've heard it referred to sometimes as body doubling, like where you just need another person who is also sitting and focused so that you can.
It's like when we were dating and you would come over and you would be grading papers sitting on my bed while I was working on my desk.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh.
That's how I knew we were, really a good fit, because I could just sit and work and you could sit and work and we could get stuff done together.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I find it helpful too, sometimes not to have somebody actively helping me, but just kind of having somebody else just sitting there.
But like it was like that in college too, your friends would come over, you'd be studying different classes, but just by the fact of you both being in studying in the room,
right? Or we'd go study at Denny's or something,
Sure.
Get some coffee and some food and sit around and do our work.
Yeah, or Eaton Park, which is what we had in Steubenville.
Eaton Park.
Eaton Park.
That is a.
It's backwards, I know, but that's the title.
Oh, okay.
We would call it Park and Eat because that seemed correct, because you want to park before you eat, but no, you eat and park. Apparently in Western Pennsylvania and in Northern West Virginia and that sort of thing.
I see.
In any case, so the funny thing is Bella, she likes to doodle. That's her thing. She's been drawing, and she's been drawing the cutest little mouse people.
Yes.
Like Brambley Hedge, but they're Catholic mouse people. So she had like a little Catholic mouse priest with adoration and a monstrance,
holding up the monstrance while a bunch of other mice like knelt down.
It was the cutest.
And a bunny. There was a bunny.
There was a bunny. There are mice and bunnies.
And then she did another of like little mice praying the rosary and
then just doing various things like a blacksmith mouse and a mouse a bunny that was sweeping and
shoveling snow.
Yeah, shoveling snow.
They're super cute.
It was very cute. So yeah. That's how she deals with her distraction. It's hard to tell her not to do that because it's like, this is really cute. And so back to school is good. So let's talk about food. It's hard to do new things because it's supply chain issues. It's just hard to, so the food at the market is inconsistent. We've talked about that a couple times. But you came up with an idea for a meal this week for a creamy tomato soup.
I was so craving tomato soup on Friday, and I like tomato soup, and my idea was tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwiches, which is the classic combination. But I find that tomato soup that's too homogeneous, I get bored with creamy soups.
Soup has to have something to chew. Otherwise, it's just a drink.
So my tomato soup is creamy. And I do puree it so it doesn't have like big chunks, but I kind of minimally puree it so there's still some texture to it.
There's still some tomato in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also add potato, like baked potato, and cauliflower, which add like a vegetable creaminess in addition to the but you heavy cream
puree them.
Yeah, I puree very, very heavily pureed, so there's no chunks of potato and cauliflower, but there's a little bit of that flavor I really like in my tomato soup.
Yeah, there's a sweetness, there's a sharpness, there's that potatoiness a little bit.
A little bit of that earthiness.
Yeah, it's got that layers of flavor in it. Yeah, tomato soup like out of the can can be kind of just homogenous, just bland.
It's a one note dish.
Which when you're a kid and you're not feeling well and it's hot, it's fine. That.
I did not like tomato soup as a kid.
It was okay, but I only liked it when I was not feeling well. But this had all those different layers, and then you gilded the lily.
I made homemade croutons with some leftover bread that it was getting stale, so I stuck it in the freezer, and garlic croutons. And I also cooked some bacon and made bacon crumbles to go on top. And I chopped up some scallions to like sprinkle on top too. So lots of texture.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all about texture in my soup.
Yeah. It was really good.
It was so good.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it also gave me horrible heartburn.
Poor thing. Yeah. It was fine for me, and I don't think anybody else got heartburn from it. But
that combination of the cream and the tomato, I think, just did not sit well.
Yeah, that's too bad. But it was really good. And then I've had some of the leftovers, and it gets better the next day.
I know. I was really optimistic, and I had some leftovers the next day, and it sat just as badly the second time.
Oh man. So and then Saturday night you mentioned we had beef stew. You made some homemade bread to go with it, and you made some beef stew. We've talked about making beef stew before, but
I used the same pureed cauliflower trick in my beef stew as I did in the tomato soup.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it adds that thickening without I use some flour and tomato paste, which are the traditional thickeners for beef stew, but then like maybe a cup of frozen cauliflower. I just defrosted it, and then I used my immersion blender and a little bit of water to puree it, and then threw it in the pot with the stew. And
you can use a blender too if you want to pull out a blender.
Right.
The immersion blender is a little easier, but yeah. It's and the beef stew we do is tomato and flour, so it's red and brown base. That's another one of those marriages about compromise deals, but it actually works.
I really like the tomatoey flavor, and I've always used flour as a thickener. It doesn't occur to me that those are two separate things, but evidently for some people those are like.
Do you have red beef stew or brown beef stew?
As if they can't be. I mean, this is sort of like the debate among Texans about whether chili has beef or beans. And
I'm the meme going, why not both?
Yes, I am totally of the opinion that chili should have both beef and beans, which makes me a complete heretic, evidently. But I do it my way and I like it.
Yes. Well, that's the thing, is as long as you like it. So a little wine, a little tomato, veggies.
A lot of wine.
A lot of wine.
Glug, glug, glug. Glug, 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 glug.
Okay, yes.
Carrots, potatoes. We didn't have enough potatoes, in fact, so I actually made a grocery store run to get more potatoes because we had one potato in the drawer, and that was just not enough.
That was not going to be enough. No.
Not nearly.
So,
I love a nice warm beef stew on a cold day. This is the season for soups, and there are some really good soups out there.
Yeah. I mean, as you can tell, as we've been talking about the last month or so, it's just one soup after another. If they've got watercress at the market this week, I might want to get some and do the pork and watercress soup, the Vietnamese.
Yeah, that's a huge favorite.
Yeah. Bella says she doesn't like it because she wants to eat so much of it.
Most of our kids like soups. Sophie's not really a huge soup fan, but she'll usually she's old enough now that she'll just kind of eat it because
she'll eat less than she usually does, but she'll eat it. And everybody liked what I made tonight, pretty much. I think I made a pork stir fry, the Szechuan pork stir fry. That came out pretty well, and they all like that. But more soups I think is in order.
This week I want to make this zuppa toscana that a friend of mine shared a recipe for. It's like Italian sausage, Italian sausage, potatoes, wine, butter, like a creamy sauce soup. It just looked really good.
Yeah, zuppa toscana is good.
And like baby kale, I think it had in it, or baby spinach, like something green.
Yep. Make sure to put all the ingredients on the list. So
Yeah.
I can be sure to get them this week. We do have Italian sausage in the freezer.
I know we have Italian sausage.
We have a lot of, like I said, meats for grilling that I never got to grill because our season got cut short. So so that's what we've been eating. So let's talk about things we've been watching and reading. We are continuing our Marvel Cinematic Universe watch through. With the kids, and we finally got up to Avengers: Age of Ultron.
I watched this originally. I think I was really tired the night that I watched it, and I was kind of falling asleep, and I had a hard time following what was going on. I never went back and watched it again. It made so much more sense this time. I know I keep saying this, but really, the movies are all working for me a lot better the second time through. I kind of have a general overview. I know who the characters are. I know what the basic plot is going to be, and I can really catch a lot of the details. And I'm noticing like the development of the themes.
Yes.
And I really like, my first impression of Age of Ultron is it spends a lot of time on fast-paced action, blowing things up, lots and lots of booms. But the second time through, I noticed that it really is developing a lot of the themes that are kind of through all of the Marvel movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not realize how on point it was thematically. And it really does lay the groundwork for the movies that came afterward. I really appreciated it much more as part of the ongoing story.
Well, I think it really, for me, having just watched Hawkeye, the Hawkeye scenes really had a new resonance for me.
Yeah, I picked up a lot more on Hawkeye. I picked up more on
Wanda and Vision.
Black Widow and Wanda and Vision. Like all of the characters had a lot more roundedness to them because I know where their arcs are going.
Yeah.
So I had a better sense of like, I'm picking up on some of the nuances. It was much more satisfying. And I feel like I got more insight into the later shows too.
Yeah. Well, what becomes clear is all of this has been mapped out from the beginning. Not every detail, but the arcs, the themes that this stuff was written down somewhere. Like the stuff with Hawkeye, the stuff in his wife, the stuff with Black Widow, the stuff with Tony Stark.
Yeah, there is a master plan, a game plan, and it's not accidental how well these are fitting together. Like somebody actually took a lot of time and plotted this all out and has a really good idea of what notes they want to hit, and they're hitting them really well.
Yeah.
Even the extreme violence and the sound and fury in Age of Ultron, which was definitely still there, really fits thematically because the question arises, like, are the Avengers bringing peace or are they making things worse inadvertently? And I really feel like the extreme violence is highlighting that theme, which gets developed later on and becomes kind of an ongoing question through the movies. And I like that. I like the fact that what seemed gratuitous at first is maybe a little bit more intentional than I had thought.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like, for example, in Civil War, Captain America Civil War, in you have the Sokovia Accords that come up, which are intended to place limits on the superheroes and to really restrict them because of the destruction that they cause in the pursuit of the bad guy, or really the bad guy cause. And it raises the question, do superheroes bring as much damage as they save us from?
And would the damage be as great if they weren't here?
Right. I mean, there's, you'd say, okay, well, if Loki invaded with the Chitauri aliens, sure, that would have caused huge damage if we didn't have the Avengers to stop them. But on the other hand,
would Loki have invaded if?
Right. There's a question of how much of the whether the existence of something like the Avengers, and in fact, Tony Stark says something in this, like, isn't the whole point for us to be able to retire, to make ourselves obsolete, to end the threat? And that theme keeps coming up through all of the movies. You know, this idea of Tony's drive to end the threat, to retire them, that they to make themselves unnecessary, and it's kind of the classic question, you know, the Cold War question, the Cold Warriors trying to make themselves obsolete.
But also then sort of there comes a question of like the classic, who will guard the Guardians, who will watch the Watchmen, who's going to make sure the people who are in charge of protecting us are themselves kept in line.
Right, because Tony just goes and creates Ultron. Like he answers to no one, including the other Avengers. He just does these things in the name of protecting the planet, but that's not your job, right? That's no one else has elected you, no one's asked you to do that. And so who are you to make these decisions? And this goes all the way back to Iron Man 2. Remember in the Senate hearing, like these questions come up, and I think that's sort of culminates in an Endgame where Tony is reluctant to do things.
Right. And then there's the whole question about unintended consequences. Like, our actions have consequences that we don't intend. And I think that's also an interesting theme to watch play out.
Mm-hmm. And then we noticed the thing about Vision, which is Isabella actually brought up, which is that in the scene where Vision comes to life, their Frankenstein arises. It's all of the Avengers together and Ultron and Jarvis who combine to create Vision. Like in the efforts of both Thor and Captain America to stop Tony and Bruce from releasing him, and then you've got Scarlet Witch there, and you got everyone has a role that they play in bringing him to life, and he's not what Ultron wanted, and he's not exactly what Tony wanted, and he's this new thing that's a combination of all of them. He's their combined vision. The Avengers have, in a sense, give birth to this new person.
Yeah, it's very interesting to think about, like, what that means.
Right.
And I also noticed that I had totally forgotten that Wanda had done a mind trick on all of the Avengers. And going through it this time, knowing where the story is going, it's interesting because her mind trick seems to have actually given them some sort of precognition about the future.
Right. She didn't give them lies. She gave them, this is a future or possible future.
At least some kind of filtered interpretation of what the future holds.
Right.
And that I found really fascinating. Like, I had not noticed that before. And now I'm pondering.
Well, for me, it kind of takes it back to the end of WandaVision. And what is Wanda now? What is this power that Wanda has that's sort of been dormant in her all this time, from the first time we see her in Ultron to WandaVision? And she's, I forget what they call it, the book or something like that. The other witch refers to the forbidden knowledge that Wanda has access to. And Wanda has always, in some way, has been this hidden something more. And I think that's what's the next phase of the MCU is going to be a big part of, is Wanda evolving into this new thing. So it'll be.
I'm still kind of cagey about the whole new direction. I'm a little bit concerned, but I have to say there are still a lot of outstanding questions that I want answers to, and so I'm kind of hopeful that maybe we'll finally get some answers.
Right.
While at the same time a little bit nervous about the direction they're going, because I don't really love multiverse stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm going into it with an open mind, because I've been wrong in the past about
Well, about the MCU.
About the MCU. Yes.
So that's been good. So watching Ultron has really been a mind opener, and that was just this afternoon. All these thoughts we've had since then. The other thing I want to mention was I've been watching the final season of the new Lost in Space on Netflix, and I've only got like about 2 or 3 episodes left. I think it's 2 episodes left, and it's been pretty good. It's interesting because when this started 6 years ago, all the kids were young, and now like the boy Will Robinson is like he's taller than everybody on the thing, but they keep having these things where it's been a year. It's been a year. Like it's just the last time we saw them, and so it's kind of dragged out, and not always in a good way.
So unbelievably, like the timeline doesn't actually match with his growth.
It might. I mean, you could posit that it does. I mean, I think if you look back over the 4 seasons and the time spans in between, it may be close, like maybe off by a year, maybe. But what I mean by dragged out, like the story feels dragged out. Like there's all these like the whole premise is they're trying to get from Earth to Alpha Centauri, to the new colony, and they're in the new, the 24th colonist group, and they get waylaid along the way, and all of these obstacles come up, and they just sometimes I feel like just get there, like, oh, look at this Deus Ex Machina that has interfered with their ability to get there again, and it's just. I'm glad it's the final season. I'm glad they're not dragging it out any further. The story has run its course. And I think I wouldn't mind seeing a spinoff and seeing further development of some of these characters in the future. I really love the dad. In this he's really interesting, and the family dynamics. I have to say, the older daughter Judy is completely unbelievable. She is a super capable girl. She's like 22. And is like a doctor and an engineer and like all these other things that she's super capable of. And I'm like, it's a little much. And she's always completely in command and control and got it together. It's a little hard to believe. I gotta be honest.
Okay.
But other than that, it's been pretty good. I have to say I've liked Lost in Space, this reboot. How about you? What else have you been enjoying?
I'm continuing my push through Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and enjoying it. I think I'm on season 3 now.
That seems... It's just funny, like, because you just told me about like a character leaving. I'm like, that seems like that should be later than season 3.
You keep saying that every time I tell you where I am and what's going on. You're like, wait, that's that early?
Yes, I'm baffled by this. My memory is completely off.
I'm enjoying it. And it's fun to watch it sort of at the same time that we're doing the
MCU
watch through because they do line up in fun and interesting ways. And so that's adding to my enjoyment of the MCU watch through. Then I am totally indecisive in terms of my reading. So I'm reading 3 books at once. They're all 3 juvenile novels. So one of them is called Song for a Tattered Flag, and it's set in Cold War era Yugoslavia. Actually, it's at about the point where Yugoslavia and the other Eastern European countries, Soviet bloc countries, are starting to fall apart. And so it's about a British boy who goes to visit. Goes on a school like orchestra trip to Yugoslavia, but it turns out that his mother had defected from Yugoslavia. She was a swimmer who was competing in Britain and defected. And so he's sort of connecting with relatives who are still there, and he gets kind of caught up in a revolution.
Oh, wow.
And it's interesting. Isabella read it and enjoyed it, so I wanted to read it and be able to talk about it with her. And then I'm also reading the first of the Dark is Rising series by Susan Cooper, Over Sea Under Stone. I was thinking the kids would probably enjoy it, but it's been decades since I read it, so I kind of wanted to pre-read it myself before handing it over, and I'm enjoying it. And then finally, a friend recommended a book called Rush of Wings, which is a retelling of the story of the oh gosh, what's it called? The fairy tale of the brothers who are turned into swans and the sister who has to save them.
7 swans.
Is it 7 swans or 12 swans or something like that? I cannot remember.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's sort of set in Scotland. I'm not sure. It's kind of a fantasy Scotland, and there's a evil stepmother, and the girl has some sort of magical powers, but has never been trained because her mother died before she could train her. And it's interesting. I'm having a hard time focusing on it, so I'm kind of bouncing back and forth between it and the other books. I'm not sure why. I'm having a hard time just picking something and sticking with it.
Okay. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about this week's mass readings and the homily we heard. So just as a refresher, the first reading is from the book of Nehemiah, and it's about Ezra bringing the Babylonian exiles back to Jerusalem for the first time, and standing before I like the description, men, women, and those children old enough to understand.
Right, which kind of begs the question.
Who's watching
the babies and the kids who are not old enough to understand?
The grandmas, probably.
Or some of the moms, like some of the women who are there are some subset of the women, because obviously someone's got to be staying home with the babies.
Probably.
Right. But it's interesting. So that they weren't making the moms with nursing babies stand there listening to the entire book of the law.
Right. And because it was long, because he reads the book of the law from daybreak till midday. That is a long time.
Which actually reminds me of this week I was reading about a church in Louisiana that does sort of a marathon Bible reading, and they read the entire Bible in 4 days.
Oh, wow.
They have volunteers read
24 hours a day?
I think it's 24 hours a day. I think it's like this massive read aloud of the Bible. And I thought that sounded really cool. And it just of course, reading our Bible is a lot longer than what Ezra was reading, because we have a lot more books now.
Yeah.
But the idea of just sitting down and reading through the whole thing as a communal public event.
Yeah.
Kind of cool.
Yeah, it is kind of cool. I mean, I've heard that with other things, like, the Moby Dick read through, and
right.
What's his name? The Irish Ulysses
read through. But I've never heard of anyone doing it with the Bible. Bible read through.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Well, the cool thing here, the part that I like about this reading is at the end where Nehemiah and Ezra and the Levites say to all the people after they're done reading this epic to them, they say, "Today is holy to the Lord your God. Do not be sad and do not weep." For all the people were weeping as they heard the words of the law. And we were talking about that, why were they weeping? Is it because it seems impossible to follow the law?
The law is a heavy, the law is a heavy burden, or is it weeping for joy? This is so beautiful, except the fact that they're being told,
don't be sad.
Don't be sad, makes it seem like they're not weeping for joy because this is this beautiful gift that God has given us. More
because
this is too much.
Paul and Jesus talk about the law as a burden, and Paul talks about this especially, the law in Galatians. He talks about how the law is the pedagogos. It's the walkie-talkie teacher, the very harsh teacher. It's without the Holy Spirit, without the gift of the Holy Spirit, it's impossible to keep the law. It's just so hard. I mean, this is what the Pharisees were all about. It's no, you didn't keep every jot and tittle of this law. And so it just seems impossible. But they just say, look, don't be sad, don't weep. Go eat rich foods and drink sweet drinks, and allot portions to those who had nothing prepared. So share with everyone.
I really love this. rich rich foods and sweet drinks. Like, God wants us to feast. He wants us to enjoy the good things in life. He wants us to celebrate and to share our celebrations. Our celebrations should overflow and be this communal gathering of joy. I love it.
Yes, and the reason they're feasting is because they're home. They've returned to Jerusalem. They've been in captivity in Babylon, and now they're back to the land that God had given them, and they're back to rebuild the temple. They're back to live as a people again. And so this is a celebration. We need to celebrate because the Lord has given us this. And do not be saddened this day, for rejoicing in the Lord must be your strength. Your strength comes from rejoicing in the Lord. That's where your strength comes from.
It's also interesting to think about, like, this was perhaps the first time any of them had actually heard the law.
I don't know. Well, in its entirety,
like they've never actually.
Perhaps, yeah.
In exile, they weren't offering sacrifices in the temple, but were they celebrating by reading the law?
I think a lot of the people had kind of become cultural Jews or cultural Hebrews.
And
it was only upon returning and having the Levites and having the worship again, the temple worship again, that they really picked that back up again. So yeah, I think it was, for many of them, it was their first time hearing the law in its entirety. And then of course there's the gospel of, which is a very interesting gospel because it's got a chunk from the first chapter of Luke, and then we jump way over to the fourth chapter of Luke.
Right. I mean, I love the bit about the first chapter of Luke. Since many have undertaken to compile a narrative of the events that have been fulfilled among us, just as those who were eyewitnesses from the beginning and ministers of the word have handed them down to us, I too have decided, after investigating everything accurately anew, to write it down in an orderly sequence for you, most excellent Theophilus, so you may realize the certainty of the teachings you've received. I love Luke's gesture here. He acknowledges that other people have written down gospel narratives before. And yet Luke has done his own research, his own investigations, and he's going to write it down in an orderly fashion and pass it on to us.
To translate this to the modern context, I too have decided, after investigating everything accurately new, to create an 11-part podcast that I'm going to share with you in an orderly sequence. And I'll be sure to sign up for my Patreon.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very human moment where you really feel Luke, the human author, shining through. I mean, for me, that I really feel like I'm getting Luke, not the transparent narrator, but Luke the person.
Yes.
Talking. And of course, we know from context that some of his research and investigations must have been talking to Mary, because he has a lot of firsthand eyewitness stuff about Mary's vision of the angel, Joseph's vision of the angel, visiting Elizabeth, what Mary ponders in her heart.
Things that only Mary would be able to relate.
And so I feel like Luke's like, I got something to bring here. I've done my own research. I've done my own investigation. I'm going to tell you the old story, but I'm going to tell it to you in a slightly new way.
Right. And then you have it goes to Jesus in the temple, not the temple, in the synagogue, preaching, reading from the scripture. And that connection to Ezra reading the book of the law, and now Jesus reading from Isaiah. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring glad tidings to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, and to proclaim a year acceptable to the Lord. And he rolls it up. I love the drama of this moment. He rolls it up, hands it back to the attendant, sits down, all the eyes of the synagogue look intently at him, and he says, "Today this scripture passage is fulfilled in your hearing." And the place erupts. Oh my goodness, what is he saying? And they're tearing their hair out, and they're cheering, and they're yelling, and they're blasphemer. I mean, I can imagine this scene in The Chosen will be pretty dramatic.
Yeah. I love to that it really goes thematically with Nehemiah, because here you have the people who were in captivity who've been freed, and Jesus is talking about a new kind of freedom from a different kind of captivity.
From the captivity to sin as opposed to the Babylonians.
Right.
So the homily, the priest at Mass Day was Father Pinto, who...
I love Father Pinto.
Yeah.
I was just saying this week that, wow, we haven't seen Father Pinto in a while. I wonder how he's doing. I wonder if we're going to see him again. And there he was this morning.
So, and for those who don't remember, he's from the Father Peyton Center in the next town over, and the Family Prayer Center, I think it's called. Anyway, and he's Indian, native of India, and very joyful. That's one of the characteristics of Father Pinto. He's
incredibly joyful. Big smile. I always feel like I want to smile along, and I filled with joy when I see him.
Right.
It's kind of wonderful.
And so this reading, especially the first reading, where it's about do not be sad, do not weep, but be joyful, rejoice in the Lord. That was the crux of his homily.
That was the theme that he hit on several times. Be joyful. God wants you to leave here rejoicing. And
so he gave 5 secrets to having a joyful relationship with each other, in families and in community, and with God. Okay, so the number 1 is show up. So show up to Mass, show up in your family, be there for them, be present to them.
Right, he used, of course, the example of a married couple, and he says, you could make dinner for your family and sit down and eat it and be completely checked out.
Right.
Not really engaging, not really you have done it grumbling and grudgingly, and you have technically, yes, shared a meal with your family, but you haven't been present.
Been present. Right.
And so the difference is you need to not just show up,
not
but
just be present, but
not physically present, but spiritually present. Be there for them, engage with conversation and laughter and good times. It should be an experience of joy in each other's company. And he says we've got to do that with God too. We have to show up to Mass on Sunday, show up to prayer every day, but not just as in a mechanical checking off the box. Yep, tick.
I fulfilled that obligation.
I fulfilled my Sunday obligation. Tick. I fulfilled my daily prayer obligation, but more present in a relationship.
Right. So the other ones are be truthful. So be honest about your feelings. Be honest about what you think. Be honest with each other.
You can't hold back in a family, in a marriage. It doesn't work if you're lying to each other. Right. Honesty is the bedrock foundation of a relationship.
Yes.
Including our relationship with God.
Right. Be honest with God about where you are and what you've done, and that includes going to confession.
Right. And God wants our honesty. He wants to meet us where we actually are, not where we think. He wants to meet us in our sin as we are, not only after we've fixed ourselves.
Right.
He wants our honesty. If you're having a bad day, if you're angry at him, whatever it is, he can take it. He can take your honesty, and he wants your honesty. He wants who you really are and how you really feel to be there.
So number 3, be intense or be passionate.
I like to be passionate. The be passionate version slightly better than be intense.
But be passionate about your family. Be passionate about your relationship with God. Be passionate about prayer, and just get into it. Get into
bring the fire.
Bring the fire. Right. Be giving. So be self-giving. Be a giver, I think is how he actually put it. Be a giver. Be someone who gives to others in the relationships.
Right. Don't just take from the relationship, but give of yourself.
Right. And then appropriately for a priest from the Peyton Center, he's pray together. Pray. Be pray with your family, pray with the people in your relationships, pray to God, but spend time in prayer. Like, 20 minutes a day, pray with your family.
And together. Like he focused very much on the family that prays together.
That's the Father Peyton thing. The family that prays together stays together.
And it's important to not just make prayer something that's private between you and God, but prayer is communal. It's a liturgy of coming together to worship God as a family, as a community.
Right.
That's important. That it's not just me and God.
So the secrets are: show up, be truthful, be passionate, be a giver, pray together. And those are the secrets to joyful relationships. And I like that. It made an impression. It really did.
The kids, I heard as we were going to the car after Mass, the kids say, that was a good homily.
And the kids remember it.
And especially given that his accent is sometimes kind of hard to get through, they were paying attention. And it would be really easy to check out.
Yeah. So it was good. It was good. So that about does it this week. As we wrap up, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons. Remember to sign up for our Patreon, who make it possible for us to create Raising the Bets, including Mario L., James B., Father John E., Priscilla H., and Jennifer W. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue raising the bets and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And so that's it from us. We'd love to hear your feedback, anything you thought about our discussion, or any questions you have. You can let us know by commenting at sqpn.com/bets, that's BETTS, or the SQPN Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to bets@sqpn.com. That's 2 T's in bets. We'll have links from our discussion in our show notes at sqpn.com. And I'm going to encourage you to join the StarQuest fan club by texting StarQuest, one word, StarQuest, to 66866. That's StarQuest to 66866. That'll get you on our newsletter list, and you get a couple emails from us a month and that sort of thing. So until next time, I'm Don Bettinelli.
And I'm Melanie Bettinelli.
Thank you for listening to Raising the Bets on StarQuest.